All right, so we're going to continue with this security, fire, and surveillance presentation that we went halfway the other day, and now we're going to finish this one up. All right, so as a review, here is, where is that? Okay, here's the board. Let me just get another. Okay, here's the board, main board of one of the security alarm panels. All right, so here as a review, we have the AC, that's where the power goes on, and usually the doorbell transformer works. It's 16 volts AC. Doorbell transformer works great with that one. Or there are proprietary designated plug-in transformers, because the doorbell transformer you wire into the electrical panel, and the plug-in transformer is the same thing, except it's got a plug, so you can plug into just a regular hydro outlet, and there you go, and you just get those AC wires out of there, not wires but terminals, and connect that AC. So 16 volts AC comes out here. The bell here is actually it's for the siren. When the alarm triggers, when the alarm goes into the alarm state, then 12 volts appears on these terminals, and the sirens, the alarm silence, are designed that when they receive 12 volts, then they start making all kinds of noises. Right? Program. They work different in different situations, but usually I think these ones here are that once the program is assigned to any kind of condition, like if alarm, then trigger this. And sometimes they connect power to it, and sometimes they connect the ground to the 12 volts. So it could be 12 volts floating and having a ground connected to that. So those each brand, make, model number, they will have those program buttons, program terminals solved slightly different way, and that's the time for us to hit the manual and just make sure that we know what exactly they do. Common is a common, so common and that would power something, all right, either a relay or whatnot. These are the relay contacts, dry contacts. They don't give you any sort of power. This is just a dry contact between either this and common or that in common. So, you know, it's single pole double throw switch, a relay. Here's a common, normally closed, normally open. Now, auxiliary here, this is the power. From here, usually you get 12 volts DC on that pretty much at all times. And these terminals are used to power up active devices such as motion sensors, keypads, glass break detectors, and so on. Now, here is the bus terminal. This is green and yellow because we use, I will show you those cables later on a few slides further down the road. We use something that's called a Z cable, and Z cable uses that old color code, red, green, yellow, and well, red, black, yellow, green. So usually red and black goes to the power part, and usually green and yellow goes either to a contact signal or it's being used as a bus communication channel. So if you have a keypad connected, you would have 4 terminals on the keypad. You will have the power, so you have to connect the power to the keypad, and you would have the bus, the signal terminals that you connect. It's actually labeled green and yellow, all right? So you connect those, and the keypad works. And the next keypad you connect exactly as the same one. And everything is in parallel because here is the signal that is the bus. And there's a different type of modulation techniques are being used, so the keypads can communicate on their own individually with the main board, while still being on the same bus as far as the signal goes. It's basically just a parallel connection from one keypad to another, to another, to another. All right. Here are the zones, okay? If, let's say, zones are like connection points. And you can see once in a while you have the common terminal. It's just for our convenience. We could have only one, but since there's a lot of wiring going on, so the common terminal is kind of spread around. But these are the same points, these 3, for example. This particular board has 8 zones. A zone is a contact point. If you have an alarm set up, if you just put a regular piece of wire from here to here, then the zone 1 is closed. Or you can extend the wire and connect it to a door contact. And when the door is closed, the contact is closed. Then the whole thing is closed, so that alarm treats the door as the door is closed. And if the alarm is not in an armed state, it's just idling, it might give you an indication that door 1 is open. And sometimes you're going to program a little bit of something that's called a chime. Usually in some business, usually in a business scenario, the main door is programmed that it has a chime, so every time the door opens, there's a bit of like a beep 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 kind of a thing on the keypad, so just to let you know that somebody has entered. Right, the door has opened. Right, if it's if the alarm is in an armed state, then when this opens, then well, you're going to have an alarm, right? And sometimes you're going to have a delay. Entry delay or exit delay. So this is the terminology that we need to know when it comes to alarm systems. What's an exit delay? Well, if you punch the numbers, the codes to arm the system, and you press the arm button to start triggering the arming process, then you need to have some time to get out, right? And in order to get out, you have to open the door. So the alarm is going to do the countdown, and you can program the exit delay to, usually it's 1 minute, all right, to get out. So you can still, exit the main entrance, and there are certain zones that are programmed to be included in the exit delay and also the entry delay, right? So you arm the system, press the arm button, excuse me, and you get a countdown, and the keypad usually beeps, and then the last 10 seconds, the beeping is going to be more intense, like faster, letting you know that this is the last 10 seconds of the countdown, and bang, then the system is armed. Then the entry delay, it can also be programmed as far as the time, and certain zones can be included in the entry delay. So same thing, in order to disarm the system, sometimes, quite often, you're going to have to enter the facility so you could get at the keypad. And then, usually that entry delay is programmed to be 30 seconds. 30 seconds is plenty to punch the code, right? So each zone, so this could be this could be the front entrance, right? Doesn't have to be, but usually it is, right? Over here, you could have the windows. Over here, you can have some other motion sensors, maybe. Maybe over here, you're going to get a glass break detector or two put on in series on the same thing, on the same zone. All right, so that's how the zoning works. The communication part, we already talked about that. We talked about the battery part. Now, when it comes to zoning in the security alarms, you can have just a dry contact, all right, open or closed, or you could have something that's called an end-of-line resistor. See down here? End-of-line resistor is that the zone is not looking for a complete closure, it's looking for a certain type of resistance. And if somebody mucks around with the system, they're trying to connect those wires, like here you could do that to bypass if you can get at it, right? And you shouldn't. Then if you open the door, nothing's going to happen because the system will treat this door as closed if you just connect those, right? But if you connect, well, that should be past that somewhere else, but this is just a drawing that. So if you connect some of those wires before that end-of-line resistor, then you're going to have a pretty much 0 ohm resistance, and the system might go, if it's programmed that way, into alarm state. So it's an extra security feature. Sometimes the end-of-line resistors are being used to double the zones, so you can make a 16-zone alarm out of an 8-board main board by doubling the zones. So you would have complete closure as a 1 zone, and you could have end-of-line resistor as another one, and this you can make 2 zones out of 1. In some boards that are capable of doing that, In well, many years that I've done this, I've never used that feature. I never liked that feature. It's just, in my opinion, it's asking for trouble. However, apparently some people do that because the feature is available. Now, motion sensor. Next time we see each other in person, I'll bring a couple of motion sensors just so you know. So here's the thing, here's the good old color code. See here, 12 volts and ground. This goes to that auxiliary, all right? Right here, right here, all right? Where's the big main board? Right here, all right? So these are red and black. And, where is it? Sorry. The green and yellow, so the green would go here, and the yellow would go here. So where is that motion sensor here? All right, there you go. See, red and black goes from here, and these terminals are these terminals right here. So red and black goes to the auxiliary, and here's the yellow, green goes to the common, and that goes to one of the zones. Also, you see something like the temp. It's for a temper switch. Okay, now temper switch. It would see here, right here. That's a temper switch. If somebody is tempering with that, once you put that well, the cover on, you snap it, and there is a pusher on the other side that pushes that in, so the temper switch is closed. As soon as you take the cover off, that switch is being released and the switch opens, and that system can go into alarm. So you would wire that thing in series with this zone sensor. So instead of going straight from the common to zone, you would put the yellow into the temper here, and out of temper you go right to the zone, so that you're going to put that switch in series with the sensor circuitry. Right? So it's when somebody takes the cover off, switch opens. It's just like the it's going to open the zone, and if the system is armed, then well, it's going to go into making noise and communicating with the monitoring station. Right? All right, so that's how motion sensors work in different ways. Motion sensors they work on infrared sensing circuitry. So here's the eye, and it senses infrared, and here's the lens. It's a plastic lens that looks at the room in sort of like sections. And when you see the infrared warmth that we produce as humans, or animals as well, and if that warmth moves from one spot to another, then this reacts. And you can try bypassing the motion sensor by walking extremely slow, so this thing doesn't. Good luck with that. We tried. Some of the motion sensors are pet friendly, and they go by pounds. They go by weight, and you could say this is a pet friendly motion sensor. It can bypass an animal or up to maybe 10 pounds or 20 pounds, depending on the specifications. Okay? I wouldn't trust that 100%. Somehow that if the dog jumps up and down or the cat jumps from one place to another, it's still sometimes, but they're considered. I always used to install pet-friendly motion sensors just to eliminate the possibility of the false alarms. Even if somebody didn't have pets, and they would cost a few bucks more, those motion sensors. All right, so here is the security alarm zone. Right? You don't have to connect every contact, every sensor to a separate zone, because you're going to run out of zones really fast. You only have 8 zones for a specific house or small business. So if you have 3 windows in the living room and they all open, you can put all 3 of those on one zone. And as soon as one of them is open, yeah, the alarm triggers. So it works in series. Same thing, if you have couple motion sensors in the living room, those 2 motion sensors signal, you would put those contacts in series. Now, I'm going to, here. Okay, next slide. Security alarm, typical paraphernalia that goes with it, right? Sensors, motion, door sensor, door contacts, and by the way, the contacts that you put on the windows, they're also called door contacts. Right? So motion sensors, door contacts, glass break sensors, smoke sensors, heat sensors, water level sensors, seismic sensors, panic, and wired wireless. Some of them go as a wired sensors or wireless sensors as well. For the wireless, you need additional equipment. Sometimes it's built in. The wireless circuitry is built in the main board. Sometimes you need to get external equipment that is interfaced with the alarm panel in order to recognize the wireless sensors. Like there are wireless motion sensors. You still have to power them up, but usually go the batteries. And usually I would install them if the wiring would be really hard, too much drywall or difficult to pull, or sometimes it's impossible. Well, I don't think it's impossible, but without causing too much damage that the client would not want. Right, so that's the motion sensors. Some of the motion sensors work on infrared. Some of the motion sensors work on microwave. They send microwaves and how the microwaves reflect from all the objects or whatnot. So there are infrared or microwave, and some of them would be using laser beams. All right, door contacts, they are just magnetic contacts. Magnet goes towards the contact closes, the magnet moves away from it, and the contact opens. Right? Usually used on doors or windows. Glass break sensors detects glass break or breaking of the glass. Somebody throws a brick through the window or not. The idea is that any alarm sensors, the idea is that you get this thing reacts when it should, and it doesn't react when it shouldn't, causing false alarms. We don't like false alarms. Monitoring stations don't like false alarms. Police departments don't like false alarms. So how does a glass break work? So it works as a glass break when somebody breaks a window, and it doesn't work when the glass of milk falls down because the cat knocks out some kind of a glass from the countertop. All right, in order for this glass break sensor to work, 3 things have to happen. 1, there is that low frequency wobble type of thing just before the glass breaks. Then that's also associated with the high screeching, high pitch noise of the glass shattering. So 2, those frequencies have to be present. And then there's a 3rd thing that has to be present, which is the sudden pressure change in the room. And those 3 things are present, the glass break reacts. Smoke detectors, they recognize smoke, right? Heat detectors. So smoke detectors and heat detectors, they are part of the, sort of like a fire alarm part of the, features of the security alarm. Smoke detects smoke, heat detects heat. These usually are required to be in every closed space. It used to be that we used to have to have them on every level of the house. Now every room has to have that. So if there's a hallway, you need a smoke detector. If there's 3 bedrooms, you need a smoke detector in each bedroom. Things like that, right? Depending on the jurisdiction and the bylaws that go with the area that you're in. All right, heat detectors usually are mounted in the furnace rooms where there's a likely fire to happen. There's a heat before the smoke. You could have a lot of fire flame, but no smoke, right? But heat would be the main thing that would be likely to happen in the furnace room. So it just makes more sense to install those, right? Water level detectors, sump pumps. You can have the alarm connected to the sump pump, and if the water goes too high in the sump pump then you can actually get notified on your cell phone, right? Seismic, they detect shaking, right? Usually or vibrations. They're usually very common thing is in the banks, on the safes. If somebody is trying to drill a hole through a safe or move it, or any kind of movement, it's going to detect. Panic buttons. A lot of variety stores or high secure places, they will have panic buttons, and they will be usually under, you can press them with your foot, or they're under countertop somewhere, and that's what it is. It's called a panic button. If somebody gets, robbed at gunpoint or something like that, you can discreetly press that button, and this would actually be a silent alarm, and you don't have to arm the alarm system in order for the panic to work. It will be something that's called, the zone will be programmed for 24 hours monitoring, right? Same as the heat detector and smoke detector connected. It just makes sense that the system does not have to be armed for the smoke detector to work, or a heat detector to work, or a panic detector or a panic button to work. And okay, annunciators associated with alarms, bell, siren, strobe light, and some of the alarms can be actually silent. So you might not want the burglar to know that the alarm has triggered. It's just that the police is going to arrive and surprise, hello, So how do we control? We control them through keypads, mostly for the user part, arming, disarming, and maybe getting up some of the features. And sometimes you can program them by keypads, but some of the earlier ones, 20 years ago or so, you could still program them with the keypads. The new ones, you can still also program them through the keypads, but the programming is so complex that you really want to get a laptop connected and program that way. You can also connect an IP module, so that IP module is connected to the network, and you can access that from outside. Very useful feature for installers. If you have clients that are far away from you and you just need some simple programming, let's say a person has quit the job, so they need to be removed from the system. You don't need to go on site. If you can access the system that you have installed for the client remotely and do that, if they don't know how to do it or forgot how to do it themselves, you can help them with that and charge them money without leaving your home. Right? So IP with remote access. So the IP goes with the remote access as well. IP also goes with the communication with the monitoring stations. The alarm systems do not communicate with police. Police do not connect to the alarms. Alarms connect to the companies that are called monitoring stations. If the alarm goes off, then a whole bunch of instructions come up on the screens of the people who, like, they're live humans there that actually sit and have their own duty at the monitoring station 24/7, 365 days a year. And if your alarm goes off, they will, on their monitor, they will get instructions of what to do in case of what happens. You might want to get them to call you right away, or police right away, or whatever, depending on the situation. Is it a motion sensor in the living room? You might want to get certain action. If it's a water level rising somewhere, you might get different actions. Call you, or the police right away, or call you first and then call the whatever. Right? So that's monitoring stations that take care of that business, and it's for a fee. Right? Now, remote access, we already talked about that. Wireless remote control is, just like for your TV, you can have a remote control for your alarm. Very useful feature. Like, for example, you can go to bed and arm the whole system from your bed through the remote control and go to sleep. That kind of stuff. What do we interface those with? We interface with access control, and access control is the door access control. Right? So access control is associated with the door strikes, and the door strike is the mechanical, it's a mechanical device that can actually unlock the door. Also, it's associated with something that's called proximity readers. These are those little things on the wall or by the door that you can swipe your card, access card, or a fob, key fob, and it's going to recognize it and do whatever action you program. Quite often it's being used in real estate agencies where you have a lot of people employed and people coming, going. Some people are getting, you get new employees or not employees or agents. Some of them join the company, and some of them, it's a revolving door quite often in real estate agencies. And in order for if somebody quits the job, goes to another agency, you gotta get the key from them. Right? But what are you gonna do? Change the locks every time somebody quits? It would be just too much. So access control, everybody gets the key fob or access card, and if somebody quits, goes to another place, then their access card is just deactivated and everything is fine. Right? So the alarm systems can work together with access control. Access control systems can also stand on their own, have nothing to do with security, but the access control systems can also be interfaced with the access. So for example, there's a real estate agent that wants to go to the office on the weekend. And the office is closed. They get their access card, they swipe the card, alarm gets disarmed, and the door gets unlocked. Right? So part of the alarm is the alarm system, and the other part of it is the access control, and they can work with each other. They can interface, depending on model numbers and whatnot. Right? Fire alarm part of the well, you can directly connect smoke detectors and heat detectors to the zones in the alarm, and sometimes it's okay depending on the on the jurisdiction that you're in, right? The bylaws that have to do with the area that you're in, the law of the land. Sometimes it's enough to be considered that you have some sort of fire alarm going on, right? And sometimes you need a specially dedicated fire alarm. Now, the fire alarm system can also work together with the with the security alarm. Like for example, fire alarm goes off, it triggers one of the zones of the security alarm, and that notifies the monitoring station. That's how you can interface those things sometimes. Again, it has to be agreed with the law of the land, of the bylaws that have to do with the jurisdiction you're in. Right? In Toronto, you can have different bylaws, city bylaws, than in London, Ontario. And then in New York, you have, whatever, Chicago, right? Now, monitoring stations. We talked about that already. The alarms do not interface with police stations. They interface with the monitoring stations. And here's my favorite, others. Okay. Cable. See, I put Z4, no twist. Here's the good old color code. Usually black and red are used for powering up active devices, such as motion sensors, glass break detectors, and keypads, for example. And here it would be the signal wires. So if it's just a passive device, like a door contact, that works on the magnet triggers it, right? Then those red and black are not connected. Just use the yellow ones. And Z4 is the type of cable. It's the type of a cable. It is actually called Z4 because it has 4 conductors. Can you get Z8? Yes, you'll be 8 conductors. And says no twist. Remember when we always get really strict with you connecting the data cables, that the twist has to be right to the punch, and not untwisting cables. With security alarms, you want actually no twist. Twist actually works against us. With security alarms, contacts. Twist acts as a coil. Coil do not like change. They oppose change. So, if there's a change that happens fast enough, you can open the door and close it really quick. If the cable is long enough, the signal might never get to the zone to actually let the alarm system know that the alarm has up. So for that reason, the twist acts like a coil. So we want no twist in the alarm cables. Right, fire alarms. For fire alarms, additional licensing is needed. Our college does offer programs like that if someone is interested. please let me know, and I'll direct you to the right people for you to get some more information about that. But yes, we do offer some fire alarm or fire technician program. Okay. Now, fire technicians used to install the fire alarms. Now they don't. They can design it, they can inspect it, they can troubleshoot that, but actually when it comes to the installation, because the installation is just as strict as the electrical code, there is also a fire code, just as thick as the electrical code. Then, well, the fire technician will have to know for sure. Will have to know the fire code, but the installation, actual physical installation, happens by licensed electricians, because, well, that's the way it is. That's where we are. Somewhere in another part of the world could be a different situation. What's the job of a fire alarm technician? Well, annual inspections. It takes two people. It takes the fire alarm technician and somebody that's called resetter. Right? The resetter stands by the alarm panel, and the person, I'm talking about like inspecting of the fire alarm system. And the fire technician, they go to everywhere, they open every little place, room in the whole facility, and they trigger every single sensor. So let's say this smoke detector is going to be triggered. All right, it's going to appear on the panel, and the panel is going to be put in the test mode. And the resetter is going to communicate through a cell phone or through maybe walkie-talkie to the person. Says, oh yeah, I see that this so-and-so labeled smoke detector was triggered. Okay, reset next. So the resetter press the reset button, and the technician goes and triggers something else. Right? And that sometimes can take a whole day, depending on how big the facility is. And those annual inspections are every year. Right? Also, with the fire technicians, they deal with fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers have to be in every commercial facility, and they have to be inspected and serviced regularly, whether they were discharged or not. Right? So then it's a regular maintenance. You get to drive with a bunch of fire extinguishers in your van, and if there's a facility that needs to fire, it's time for them to get those things serviced, the fire extinguishers, you take their extinguishers back to your office or to your shop, but you have to leave them something. You can't just leave them without fire extinguisher. So you get them loaners. Then you go and service the fire extinguisher, taking it apart, inspecting, maybe changing some parts, refilling it with the fresh agent there. And then you take them back in, and so that could be also a full-time job, right? And there's some other post-fire inspections. Fire technicians do that as well. And when you do that, make sure you get good rubber boots, because whenever the building is on fire, there's a lot of water there on all the floors, usually the basement floors. And get a mosquito net, because it's going to be a standing water, and especially in the summer, well, there will be a lot of mosquitoes there. Right? So that's as far as the fire alarm technique. Now, see here, okay, this is a loop for a security alarm. Things happening in series. Here's a loop for a fire alarm. Things are happening in parallel. So forget these exist. What this zone sees that end-of-line resistor, and that end-of-line resistor should be at the end of line, right, behind the last sensor. Right? Usually it's 47 kilo ohms, but depending on I put that asterisk here, and I put the little thing saying that the values may vary depending on the make and model of the fire panel. Right? So it has to be what it has to be with that specific panel. Usually 47 kilo ohms. All right. So what happens? The system, the fire alarm zone, looks at what it reads. It sees 47 kilo ohms. Okay, everything is good. All right. There are two conditions that might happen in this case. A line could get broken somewhere. Lines do get broken. It's a wire. Somebody could be doing some work, cut your wire by mistake, or something can happen, right? Well, then the system doesn't see the 48 kilo ohms or the resistor at the end. Well, is it going to trigger into a alarm? No, it's going to trigger into something that's called a trouble condition. And when in trouble condition, then, well, the panel is going to produce some periodic annoying beeps. And people who are in the office, they're going to notice those beeps and they're going to be looking, where's the noise coming from? Oh, it's from the fire alarm. Oh, no, are we in, no, it says, in case of trouble, call this number. And there's like right there. So they call the number. Are we in trouble? No, well, your system is in trouble, but this is just probably, and explain. And usually there's a visit service call. Now, so that's another condition. Well, what if there's actual fire somewhere in one of the sensors detects a fire? Well, normally those fire sensors are in the open position as opposed to the security alarms, but they have to be enclosed because everything is in series. Now, everything is in parallel. For fire alarm, those devices are open, normally open sensors. If there's a fire, if that's something, let's say this is a smoke detector, it detects smoke, boom, it closes. So now the zone sees 0 ohms, closure, boom, fire alarm, all kinds of things, trigger, annunciating, bells are ringing, and all that stuff, right? So that's how the fire alarms work. Okay? Now, what's associated with fire alarms? Sensors. I get basic things. Heat, smoke, manual. Those pull stations are manual. There are heat detectors, smoke detectors, or pull stations. Pretty much. Now, different variants of that, like smoke detector that's supposed to detect the smoke in a room, will look different than the smoke detector that is in the air ducts. Okay. Now, annunciators, bell, siren, strobe, and they should produce certain amount of noise level and visual effects. So strobe lights, they have to work. Right? What are we interfacing with? What are we interfacing fire alarms with? Security alarms, monitoring stations, sprinklers. How does sprinkler work? Okay, fire technicians also can inspect sprinklers. How does a sprinkler system work? A sprinkler system is a network of water pipes connected to sprinkler heads, and you see them a lot, usually in the ceiling, sometimes on the walls. There are 2 types of sprinkler systems, dry and wet. The ones that we have in our school, for example, or inside the buildings, where there's normal atmospheric conditions, I would say. The heat is provided in the winter, so there's no human occupancy. So you can fill those pipes with water, and the water is under pressure. And the head end of the sprinkler system, there is a sensor that senses the pressure. And the pressure should be no less than whatever the amount is set. If the pressure goes lower, the water pressure at the head end of the sprinkler system, then that means that one of the sprinkler systems probably was triggered and the water is just gushing out of that. So then the whole pressure drops. Then things trigger, right? The sprinkler system can be connected to the fire alarm or security alarm, or it could have circuitry on its own. And communicator is triggered, so monitoring station is notified, and fire trucks are dispatched. So the pressure has to be, sometimes the pressure, the city pressure goes so low that it actually is going to trigger the sprinkler system head end, so that sometimes could be a problem, right? Now, they're also dry. So this, inside the buildings, usually you would have a wet system, which means the pipes are filled with water. under pressure. Now, the dry systems are when you can't have water in the pipes sitting there. Like, for example, outside parking lots, when they need sprinkler system, they will have a dry. If there was water in those pipes, it would freeze in the winter. So we can't have that. So it's filled with air. And then when the sprinkler head is broken, then it takes a little bit, tiny bit more, a few seconds more than the wet system for the pipes to fill up with the water, and it just works normally, right? All right, so also things are interfaced with the PA systems because you need to have some annunciations going on. Kitchen and fire suppression systems. Commercial kitchens do have fire suppression systems. There are nozzles above the kitchen, above the stove, and it's connected to it's called the extinguisher bottle, somewhere in the wall or close by, and it's connected through a bunch of pipes and sensors. And above the stove, there will be heat sensors. If the heat goes up a certain amount that it's actually detecting fire, then the whole thing triggers and the stove is being extinguished, right, by those nozzles on top of that, right? And there are certain sequences of what happens, but you would get trained on that. And you can actually install those as well. A lot of pipe bending and rigid pipes are being used for that. And my favorite, others, all right? With the fire alarm, electrical code in effect, fire code in effect, and licensing involved. Right? So a little bit more intense than electrical. Fire alarm cabling, right? Well, you can't just have any. You have to have fire alarm cable, rated cable, in order to be able to connect sensors and anything that has to do with the fire alarm. And we can have fire alarm cable unshielded, foil shielded, armored, unshielded, and armor shielded. Okay? That's and they are color coded. Some of the jackets actually red. Right. You know what? This surveillance, we're going to next. I don't want to rush through that because there's the whole thing. I want to give this thing to you properly. So we're going to finish on. We're going to stop right here, and next time we see each other, we're going to continue with that. We got lots of time. We got lots of cushion. Time is running out, so we only have few lessons left, and that's where the cushioning kicks in, as far as the time thing. So you will be able to get all the content before the term ends. And, well, that's pretty much it for today. Any questions so far? How many people we have? Oh, we have still 10 people. No questions? All right. I'm always available if you want to email me, and I respond usually pretty quick. All right. Okay. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and good Easter. All right.